and still has with the bill, we would be looking at how to enhance the oversight and review functions of this body over regulations making authority, not undermining it as Bill S2 does. Thank you.
The honourable member will have 7 minutes to complete his speech when we return to this bill for further debate. Statements by members, déclaration de député. The honourable member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today in support of hardworking Canadian families that form the cornerstone of our society. As a basic unit of any successful nation, families drive our economy, build our communities, and provide our children with moral, social, and financial stability. I firmly believe that when the family unit is healthy, when families prosper, all Canadians prosper. I stand here today in support of our government's commitment to help families. In our most recent budget, we introduced a number of initiatives that will help millions of Canadian families, including those that live in southeastern Manitoba. Since forming government, we have cut taxes over 160 times. This will result in a typical two-earner Canadian family receiving tax relief and increased benefits of up to $6,600 this year. Some examples of these tax credits include the family tax cut, the universal child care benefit, and the children's fitness credit. I have received many supportive comments from our government's low tax initiative from families all across my riding of Provencher. They are encouraging us to work hard and to continue to deliver results for families.
The honourable member for Nickel Belt.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in tribute to the volunteers that make our communities strong and unique. I particularly want to acknowledge the hard work of the individuals who do this type of great work in and around West Nipissing. It is volunteers that make senior suppers a success and showcase the compassionate and caring nature of our communities.
It truly takes a small army of volunteers to implement events like
and Bluegrass Gathering, the River and Sky Music and Camping Festival, St. Charles Fishing Derby, West Nipissing Rock and Rib Fest, Sturgeon Falls Music Festival,
and celebrations for Saint Jean across the region.
Visitors a chance to see our unique and engaging culture which blossoms in the summer months. I also want to pay special tribute to a super volunteer, Charlie Lang, who organizes so many of these events, including the famous Sturgeon Falls Fiddle Festival. I am sure that all members join me in saluting Charlie and all the volunteers that make our communities thriving.
The honourable member for Chilliwack, Fraser Canyon.
Mr. Speaker, last month it was my great privilege to travel around my riding of Chilliwack, Fraser Canyon to honour our living World War II veterans with a victory pin and certificate issued by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Veterans Affairs to commemorate the 75th anniversary of Canada's entry into the war. I held events at the Pemberton, Lillooet, Hope and Chilliwack Legions, where 25 veterans gathered to receive this honour in the presence of their friends, families and comrades. Wow. As we celebrated these living legends and Canadian heroes, I was reminded of one of my heroes, my late grandfather Bill Strahl, who joined the Royal Canadian Air Force during World War II when he was only 17 years old. A young man, but like thousands of others his age, old enough to know that he needed to join the fight against Nazi tyranny. Many of the veterans we honoured were just boys and girls when they volunteered to defend this great country and the values we hold dear, but they quickly came of age as our greatest generation. All gave some gave all, lest we forget.
The honourable member for Beausejour.
Mr. Speaker, last weekend New Brunswick lost one of its most respected citizens. Robert Kenny passed away at age 72, having fought a courageous battle against ALS for the past 6 years. Bob Kenny was a distinguished lawyer and community leader who leaves behind a legacy of generosity and service. In Fredericton, Bob was president of the YMCA, led a committee to build Fredericton's indoor pool, and was a devoted basketball coach and player. Always a Red Sox fan, the dugout at Royals Field in Marysville is named in his honour. Atlantic salmon conservation was another of Bob's passions, and last month, supported by his longtime friend Frank McKenna, the Nature Conservancy named a salmon pool after Bob on the southwest Miramichi. I ask colleagues to join me in expressing our sympathy to Bob's wife, Joan, his daughters, Brigitte, Natalie, and Mary Ellen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, July 6th will mark the 80th birthday of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. A Nobel Peace Prize laureate and one of just 6 honorary Canadian citizens, His Holiness has devoted himself to spreading the values of love, peace, and compassion. He describes himself as a simple Buddhist monk, despite being revered all around the world as a champion of human rights. His Holiness preaches a middle way approach to conflict resolution based on nonviolence, compromise, and dialogue. He works tirelessly for the ultimate goal of allowing Tibetans to live freely and peacefully in an autonomous Tibet within the People's Republic of China. On behalf of the Parliamentary Friends of Tibet and the Tibetan community in my riding of Etobicoke Lakeshore, as well as across the country, I would like to wish His Holiness a happy birthday. Tashi Dale.
The Honourable Member for Marc-Aurèle-Fortin. Mr. Speaker, the aerospace sector is a high-tech sector, and we have unique expertise. And yet, the Conservative government doesn't seem to understand the strategic importance of this industry. Over 1,000 jobs have been lost in the aerospace sector this year. Remember that the Conservative government cut $500 million from the tax credits for scientific research. The Conservatives have mishandled purchases of planes and helicopters. We've seen cost overruns and they're not being delivered on time. Canadians deserve better. The NDP is committed to investing in supporting the aerospace sector by creating an innovation tax credit and by extending the accelerating capital cost allowance. For government purchases, the NDP will hold open and transparent calls for tenders and will work with our aerospace sector to promote spin-offs for the maximum number of jobs and contracts here in Canada. Canadians can count on us to protect these great jobs.
The honourable member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, today, as we near the end of this 41st Parliament, I pay tribute to the people of my riding of Simcoe North. From the shoreline of Georgian Bay to the farmlands along the north side of Lake Simcoe, from the thriving city of Barrie to the cusp of cottage country in Muskoka Parry Sound, my riding is blessed with generous and enterprising people and communities that reach back to the earliest of recorded history in our nation. I consider it the greatest of honors to represent this region of Ontario, the place of my birth and my family since 1874.
I congratulate all of my constituents for their pride in their communities, their history, and their culture.
Obvious in every festival, every work of art, and every savvy innovation from our business community. My constituents, supporters, and critics alike, one would do well by your example. You make me proud each and every day. Merci.
The honourable member for Elmwood, Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to acknowledge and thank the Royal Canadian Legion Zone 64 and Transcona Branch No. 7 for hosting their annual Decoration Day services in recognition of those who have served and those who continue to serve in our Canadian Armed Forces. Events like these ones serve as powerful reminders of the sacrifices made by our veterans, sacrifices they made to assure not only our freedom here in Canada, but also the freedom of many other countries in the world. Being the son of immigrants from the Netherlands who came to Canada after being liberated by Canadian forces, I am forever indebted to Canadian veterans who defended Holland's peace and security. As Canadians, we were very proud to join the Dutch people as they celebrated the 70th anniversary of their liberation earlier this spring. I was tremendously honored to meet Their Majesties King Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima of the Kingdom of the Netherlands last month in recognition of this important milestone. I wish to recognize Canada's men and women in uniform, past and present, for all they have done in serving our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Today is my final statement in the House as a member of this 41st legislature, and I would like to note the pride in the work that we've been able to accomplish over the last 4 years. Federal members are an important line of connection between the regions and Ottawa, and I'm very proud to have been able to represent the people of Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. They taught me that when defending our interests, like customs at the Bagotville Airport, preventing bullying, protecting the Postal Service, funding our military base and the future of the forestry sector, the important thing is to work together. And that's how we have worked together to defend the interests of our region, Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, for 4 years. This is a way of working that's deeply held within us. It's linked to our roots in the area, and we work together. This summer, I will continue to be present on the ground with the people of Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord, and I will continue to contribute to the success of our region. Thank you for your trust, your support, and your encouragement, and let's work together to elect an NDP government this fall.
The honourable member for Oxford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, the Liberal leader revealed that he would use, and I quote, alternative sources of capital, such as pension funds, to pay for his irresponsible promises. The seniors in Oxford reject the Liberal leader's plot to endanger their retirement security to fund his spending schemes. On behalf of every senior and future retiree in Canada, our Conservative government says hands off their pensions. We created the tax-free savings account and introduced pension income splitting that is benefiting over 2 million seniors and pensioners. Canadian seniors and future retirees are better off under the leadership of our Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, now is not the time for risky schemes and untested leadership.
The honourable member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. While thousands of good jobs are being lost and people are more deeply indebted than ever, the NDP will always be on the side of workers and middle-class families. We have solutions. We'll make life more affordable and create good green jobs in an economy reoriented towards renewable energy. We're there for the 99%, those who have always worked hard to make ends meet, those who are looking for a job, and those who want to retire with dignity. We share their dreams.
Every month, and people are in debt like never before. The NDP will always be on the side of the workers and the family of the middle class. We are proposing common sense solutions that will help families, better health care, child care, and green jobs for the economy of tomorrow. We are in the parliament for the 99%. Everybody who works every day to make ends meet. We are from the same word, and we have the same dream to change it.
The honourable member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the G7 meetings, world leaders agreed to continue supporting the isolation of Russian President Vladimir Putin through economic sanctions. All members of the G7 agree with Canada's position that sanctions cannot be lifted until Putin respects the sovereignty of Ukraine's borders. I am proud of the fact that our Prime Minister took the principled stand that Russia cannot be allowed back into the G7 so long as Vladimir Putin is president. Canada and this Conservative government stands with Ukraine. Whether it takes 5 months or 50 years, we will never recognize Vladimir Putin's aggressive annexation of Ukrainian territory. There will be no business as usual with Russia as long as they insist on violating international law. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs said, if the Russians want to be responsible global citizens, they need to prove it and get out of Ukraine.
The honourable member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Liberal caucus, I extend condolences to the family and friends of Constable Daniel Woodall, killed in the line of duty last evening in Edmonton, Alberta. Our wishes for a quick recovery are also extended to Sergeant Jason Harley, injured during the same incident. Constable Woodall worked on the hate crimes unit of Edmonton Police Services, having transferred from the Manchester Police of Great Britain 8 years ago. As Police Chief Connaught stated, this is a tragedy. However, their service is heartened by the words of police forces worldwide who share in grief due to a common bond. We too, in this place, share that grief and add our respect for police officers and all they do. Constable Woodall was 35 and is survived by his wife Claire and 2 children. I'm told he was doing what he loved, policing, but he also was a passionate soccer supporter. Sounds about right, coming from England. Again, to Claire, family and colleagues, our heartfelt sympathy.
The honourable member for London North Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board has an independent mandate that is very clear to invest the best interests of hardworking Canadians who have paid into it. It operates independently from government to invest funds on behalf of its 18 million Canadians who contribute and benefit from it. That helps ensure that the retirement funds Canadians rely on remain safe and secure. but the Liberal leader has admitted he would use, and I quote, alternative sources of capital such as pension funds to pay for his irresponsible spending. It gets worse. The Liberal leader also said of his spending schemes, it is time for a new revenue source. Canadians know what that means, another tax hike from the Liberal leader. On behalf of Canada's hardworking seniors and future retirees, our Conservative government says hands off their pensions.
The honourable member for Burnaby, New Westminster.
Mr. Speaker, with the HoC report on the Senate expense scandal tabled today, Canadians are finally getting some answers on the Conservative and Liberal corruption that's taken hold in the Senate. And it's not pretty.
The Mike Duffy trial is only the tip of the iceberg. Almost half of the Senate is being rocked by illegal spending allegations. The Auditor General has named in his report a trio of senators who hold considerable sway in the Senate. The Speaker of the Senate, HoC, who was just appointed by the Prime Minister himself, the Leader of the Liberal opposition, James Cowan, and the government leader in the Senate, Claude Carignan. It's absolutely scandalous.
We're hoping that Canadians will look the other way and ignore the rot in the undemocratic and unelected Senate. But Canadians know better. And this October, Canadians will be able to vote for the change they want and actually get it in voting for an NDP government, Mr. Speaker, on October 19th.
The honourable member for Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, it's with sadness I speak today. Yesterday, tragedy struck Edmonton as Constable Daniel Woodall, a veteran police officer, died of the injuries he suffered in the line of duty. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family of Constable Woodall and his fellow Edmonton police officers during this difficult time. We wish a good recovery to Sergeant Jason Harley, who also suffered injuries during the intervention. It's a tragic reminder of the dangers faced by members of our law enforcement community who work selflessly each day to keep us safe in Canada.
It is my understanding that there have been discussions among representatives of all parties in the House and that there is agreement to observe a moment of silence in honour of the fallen police officer in Edmonton, Alberta. Thank you, colleagues. Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable member for Halifax.
The attempts to stifle the Senate scandal have become the norm for the Prime Minister's office, watering down the internal Senate report, a $90,000 check for Senator Duffy, and the Auditor General's report on the Senate scandal. That's even more disappointing. Did the Prime Minister's office have contacts with senators before the tabling of the report?
Obviously, Mr. Speaker, it was the Senate that actually invited the Auditor General in to examine their expenses, Mr. Speaker. And we understand, of course, that that report has been tabled and been made public, and we expect the Senate to implement the recommendations.
Member for Halifax.
Speaker, that member and that government refuses to come clean with Canadians about whether or not the Prime Minister's office was in touch with any senators before this report was tabled. Why are Conservatives so afraid to tell the truth? Could it be because 8 of the senators who are named in the report were appointed by that Prime Minister? Or could it be because the Prime Minister's hand-picked Senate Speaker was also named in the report? Or maybe it could be because Senate leaders named in the audit set up their very own appeals process.
Whoa.
Conservatives have a history of cover-ups. Are they now working with Conservative senators to do damage control?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, again, as I just said, it was the Senate that actually invited in the Auditor General to examine their expenses, and I understand that the Auditor General has put in place a number of recommendations, and we hope that the Senate will follow those recommendations. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, what's highlighted is that when people deliberately abuse taxpayer resources, Canadians have a right to expect that money to be repaid, and if individuals have done it deliberately, that they face the full extent of the law, Mr. Speaker. I certainly hope the NDP will reflect on that, Mr. Speaker. I know they owe $2.7 million. I hope they will reflect on that and will consider repaying the taxpayers the $2.7 million that they owe them.
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve better than a scandal-plagued, self-policing Senate, and that Auditor General is calling for transformative change and independent Senate oversight. So after coming here to reform the Senate, now Conservatives, they're defending the status quo and Senate corruption. Do they agree with the Senate Speaker that, quote, these senators should be thanked by the population for their actions? Or do they agree with us and the Auditor General that transformative change is needed now?
Mr. Speaker, we learned last night that it is a priority of the NDP to actually hold a constitutional conference, to open up the Constitution, and to hold a referendum, Mr. Speaker, with respect to the next steps on the Senate. That's not something that we're going to do, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue to focus on jobs and economic growth, Mr. Speaker, because that's a priority of Canadians. At the same time, what is very clear is that the NDP, they owe $2.7 million. There's only one taxpayer, and whether it's a senator or whether it's a member of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, there are 68 members of the NDP caucus who owe $2.7 million. I believe that's 3 times as much as the Auditor General identified in the Senate report, and I hope they'll pay it back.
Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Welcome to this reality, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives would have the people believe that the Prime Minister personally appointed Senator Housakos to the speakership of the Senate without asking a single question about his expenses or in the way in which he would manage the coming scandal. Honestly, the Conservatives take us for idiots. Would they at least have the decency to show a modicum of transparency and tell us what contacts were managed between the Prime Minister's office and Senator Housakos before the tabling of the report?
Mr. Speaker, as you know, Senator Housakos was a bipartisan appointment on the recommendation of the Leader of the Liberals and the Leader of the government in the Senate, Mr. Speaker. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, what this report identifies and what all of us should understand is that there's only one taxpayer. There's only one taxpayer, and whether it's a senator or it's a member of Parliament, when you deliberately mislead the Canadian people, when you owe them money, you should pay it back, Mr. Speaker. Now, we understand that there's some senators who owe some funds, but there are also 68 members of the NDP caucus. I hope they'll reflect on this and pay the money back.
Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, people deserve answers. They deserve the truth from their own government. The Auditor General's report is clear. The Senate is corrupt and needs immediate major changes. And there has to be really, above all, an independent oversight established. Will the government finally work to put in place an independent body to oversee the Senate so we can get the truth, or will the parliamentary secretary continue to hang on to his meager attacks in disdain of transparency?
Well, Mr. Speaker, from my understanding is that the Auditor General has made some recommendations, and we expect that the Senate will follow those recommendations, Mr. Speaker. But at the same time, we know that it's a priority of the NDP to hold a referendum with respect to the Constitution. And it's ironic, since that member opposite has wrote 29 separate checks to a separatist party. And this is the NDP that wants to open up the Constitution and have a referendum, Mr. Speaker, with that particular separatist member as its lead. I think not, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to focus on jobs and economic growth and trying to get back the $2.7 million that they owe the Canadian taxpayer.
Honourable Member for Beauséjour. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of State for Finance said that strengthening the Canada Pension Plan would be like using a bazooka. The employment minister opposes the job creation system, and the Prime Minister wanted Alberta to withdraw from it, and the former Minister for Consular Affairs says it's like a white-collar criminal scheme. So rather than insulting this program that has helped so many Canadians, why do the Conservatives not develop, alongside of the provinces, a real, credible plan to strengthen and broaden the regime, the Canada Pension Plan that's so important for so many Canadians? Mr. Speaker, they have said that they wanted to impose a new tax that will result in $1,000 more having to be paid by every worker earning $60,000 a year. And small and medium-sized businesses that employ that person will also have to pay that same $1,000 tax for every employee, Mr. Speaker. Our businesses are telling us that it would kill jobs and it would hurt Canadian families. So we are opposed to this new tax proposed by the Liberals.
Well, just repeating a falsehood doesn't make it true. Most Canadians are seriously troubled about not having enough to live on in their retirement. 3/4 in the private sector don't have a company pension. The typical 35-year-old today is saving only half of what their parents did. Among those in their 50s, 2/3 have less than $100,000 set aside. 1/3 have nothing at all. Canadians want a comprehensive solution. Will the government take the advice of the late Jim Flaherty and begin a modest, phased-in, fully funded expansion of the Canada Pension Plan?
Right. The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Party has confirmed that it wants to impose Kathleen Wynne's proposal for a new payroll tax on Canadians. And now, according to the Wynne Liberal government, this would be about $1,000 in additional taxes for every single worker earning $60,000 a year. Worse yet, the small business employing that worker would have to match that new tax. This Canadian Federation of Independent Business says that businesses would lay people off, cut wages, and some would even close their doors. The Honourable Member for Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance himself confirmed last week that CPP premiums are not payroll taxes. They do not belong to the government, he said. They always belong to the individual pensioner, he said. The CPP Investment Board gets impressive results, he said. So this finance minister must agree with the late Jim Flaherty, who reported, quote, strong support for the Canada Pension Plan and the central role it plays in our government-supported retirement income system, unquote. Why not work with the provinces on a strong, comprehensive CPP?
The Honourable Minister of Employment. We already have that, Mr. Speaker, but that's not what the Liberals are proposing. They're proposing a new $1,000 payroll tax on every single worker in Canada. They want to take the Kathleen Wynne plan, which again is $1,000 in new taxes for the average worker earning $60,000 a year, and then they say they will invest that in so-called infrastructure programs, Mr. Speaker. We do not want the Canadian people to have their pension plan rated to pay for Liberal pork barrel politics and to pay higher job-killing taxes, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. The Prime Minister's office did everything in their power to protect their senators and cover up the expenses scandal at every step of the way. The Senate has been Alibaba's cave for Conservative bagmen. In 2013, when the issue was the location of Mike Duffy's residence, the Prime Minister came to his defense, and the member for Nepean Carleton said that Nigel Wright had done the honourable thing by writing out that check. Who in the Prime Minister's office has been in contact with the senators regarding the Auditor General's report?
The Secretary.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
He released his report Just today it was tabled in the Senate, Mr. Speaker. It was the Senate that called in the Auditor General to review their expenses, and we expect that they will implement the recommendations of the Auditor General. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, what's very clear is that deliberate misuse of taxpayers' dollars is completely unacceptable. There's one taxpayer, and whether it's a member of Parliament or a senator, Canadians expect their money to be used wisely. And there are 68 members of the NDP caucus who deliberately misuse taxpayers' dollars to the tune of $2.7 million. That's 3 times the amount the Auditor General identified in the Senate, and they should pay that money back.
The honourable member for La Pointe de l'Île. What he's refusing to say is that when the Senate scandal broke, the Prime Minister rushed to Mike Duffy's defence. He defended Pamela Wallin, and he said he had full confidence in Nigel Wright before changing his mind about that. But now the Speaker of the Senate said he's done nothing wrong, even if he intends to repay his expenses, and he's asking Canadians to thank him. Wow, what an apology. That takes the cake. Will the Prime Minister finally face his responsibilities, or will he continue to defend the undefendable at the Senate?
We, of course, obviously expect that the Senate will implement the recommendations of the Auditor General. But as I just said, Mr. Speaker, this is a member of Parliament opposite who just asked the question, who owes the Canadian taxpayer $27,000, Mr. Speaker. $27,000. The members of the NDP think it's funny. They think it's funny to owe the taxpayers $2.7 million. The Canadian taxpayer doesn't think it's funny because they work too hard for the money that they send to us, Mr. Speaker, and they expect it to be used in a responsible fashion. And when it's not, they expect it to be repaid. So the NDP could do the right thing, look at the Auditor General's report, and do the right thing for taxpayers and pay back the millions of dollars.
The honourable member for Alfred Pellan. The Conservatives tried to have us believe that Nigel Wright acted alone until the RCMP contradicted them. They also tried to have us believe that there was no agreement with Mike Duffy until the RCMP contradicted them. It's not surprising people don't believe the government. The member for Nepean Carleton said that he wanted to maximize accountability and minimize costs. So what is the government proposing to do some real housekeeping in the Senate?
Mr. Speaker, we know what the NDP agenda is with respect to the Senate. They've said yesterday that they want to hold a referendum, open up the Constitution, that it was a priority of the NDP that they would open up the Constitution, hold negotiations, and ultimately have a referendum. That's not the priority of Canadians. The priority of Canadians is that we continue to focus on jobs and economic growth, Mr. Speaker. That's what we'll continue to do. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, Canadians want their money to be used wisely. There are 68 members of that caucus who owe Canadians close to $3 million, and I hope that they will repay the Canadian taxpayer the money that they owe them.
The honourable member for Alfred Pellan. The Auditor General is an independent arbitrator. What he gave us are the facts, not his opinion. It's never been so clear, Mr. Speaker. The time has come to abolish this backward-looking institution. The Auditor General recommends a thorough house cleaning to rectify the systemic problems of repayment of expenses in the Senate. Will the government finally support the NDP proposal to stop this overspending frenzy in the Senate and put an end once and for all to partisanship in the upper chamber? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
We've put a number of reforms on the table, and it's now up to the Council of the Federation to take a look at those reforms, Mr. Speaker. But what we will not do, of course, is reopen the Constitution, set Canada on this course, which would culminate in a referendum. This is what the NDP have suggested that they would do. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to continue to focus on economic growth, jobs and economic growth, Mr. Speaker. At the same time, the Auditor General has come forward with some recommendations. We hope that the Senate will follow those recommendations, and we hope that the NDP will do the right thing for taxpayers and refund the $2.7 million that they owe them.
The honourable member for London, Fanshawe.
Well, thank you, Speaker. They'll say anything. The Auditor General has issued a dire warning about Senate spending. 30 senators implicated and a whole system of oversight declared a failure. After 2 years of digging through the expenses of current and former senators, Canadians certainly don't need a cooked-up appeals process designed to get senators off the hook. Does the government not understand that the Auditor General is an independent third-party arbiter? Isn't it clear that he is supplying a finding of fact, not opinions like them?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Of course, we welcome the Auditor General's report, and we expect that the Senate will follow the recommendations of the report, Mr. Speaker. But the height of arrogance coming from the NDP right now. There are 68 members,
Sanctimony Brigade.
68 members of them who owe $2.7 million to the Canadian taxpayer. They are being taken to court to repay that $2.7 million, and they refuse to do it, Mr. Speaker. What they should do is do the right thing. Repay the taxpayer the $2.7 million that they owe them, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to focus on jobs and economic growth.
The honourable member for London Fanshawe.
It's crystal clear today that the status quo in the Senate isn't acceptable. It cannot go on. There are simple steps that don't involve the Constitution that could be taken today to bring in reform. But the government and their Liberal friends steadfastly refuse to take any action. Will the Conservatives either agree to make changes to the Senate or else explain to Canadians why they think it's okay for senators to spend thousands of dollars flying first class across the country on the taxpayers' dime to raise money for the Conservative Party of Canada?
Speaker, as I said, we will not open up the Constitution and engage in the constitutional battles, which will culminate in a referendum like the NDP's proposing, Mr. Speaker. But she could help me if she would have the member for Louis Bear repay the $31,000 that he owes. If the member for Bois Point Limoilou would repay the $31,000 that he owes. If the member for Charlevoix St. Charles would pay the $35,000 that she owes, Mr. Speaker. If the member for Scarborough Southwest would repay the $141,167 that he owes, the member for Louis Saint Laurent could pay back the $31,000.
The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Well, Mr. Speaker, from fiction to fact, the Auditor General of Canada has shown a damning expose of the Senate. We're learning that they were flying first class to do corporate business. Their personal pet projects. And the Auditor General has once again flagged that we have to end this issue of self-policing. Now, this report belongs at the feet of the Prime Minister. He promised Canadians reform. Instead, his staff delivered cover-ups, whitewash, and a bribe. Why has this Prime Minister gone to ground when Canadians are looking to him to show some leadership in dealing with this corrupt institution?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Speaker, yesterday, I have speaker after speaker of the NDP, not one of them. It wasn't until the very end when they were asked, how would you actually reform the Senate, when they actually admitted they would have a constitutional conference and they would ultimately have a referendum. That's not the priority of Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We know that there's not unanimous support to modify the Senate, so what we're going to continue to do is focus on jobs and economic growth. At the meantime, I'm going to see if I can get the member for LaSalle-Limard to pay back the $27,866 that she owes, the member for Rivière de Mille to pay back the $29,845. The member for Brossard-La Prairie could help us out by repaying the $30,700.
The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
They really have lost their way. They hide behind that poisonous sideshow, which is really just to run cover for their insider friends. What happened to the Conservative Party? You know, it's his appointed senators who are defying Canadians, hard-working Canadians who pay their way and play by the rules. The senators saying they're not going to listen to the audit. They'll look at the findings. I'm sorry, the AG report isn't an opinion. This is a forensic audit. Why is this government standing in solidarity with the corruption in the Senate rather than standing with the Canadian taxpayer?
Mr. Speaker, it's very clear that when Canadian taxpayers' money is abused, they expect actions to be taken, Mr. Speaker. That's what we've been fighting for since we've been elected in 2006. This member doesn't seem to understand that there is only one taxpayer. Maybe this member in that caucus should look at the people in the gallery who send their money here and expect it to be used wisely and explain to them why they refuse to pay back the $2.7 million. Why does the member for Chicoutimi-Lafayette refuse to pay back the $28,152? Why does the member for Notre-Dame-de-Grâce-Lachey not pay back the $169,000?
Order. Order. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Well, I think that rant explains the story of the demise of the Conservative reform agenda. Remember a Prime Minister who came to Ottawa riding a white horse? Instead, he'll be leaving flogging a dead horse, taking Duffy and Wallen and the member for Markham Oakridge with them. What changed? You remember how that reform agenda was the member for Nepean who said, quote, they would maximize accountability and minimize costs. Sure. Instead, they maximize the partisan abuse by their crony insider friends, and they have no willingness to stand up to the disgrace that's the Senate because the Prime Minister appointed them. Why will they not be accountable to the Canadian public?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, there's only one taxpayer, and it doesn't matter whether it's a senator or a member of Parliament. When you abuse the taxpayers, you should pay that money back, Mr. Speaker. That's why I encourage the member for St. Hyacinthe Bagot to repay the $30,023, Mr. Speaker. The member for Outremont, the leader of the opposition, he owes $400,000 to the Canadian taxpayer, Mr. Speaker. Standing up for the taxpayers is what we have done since day one, and we'll continue to do it. Whether it's a senator or a member of Parliament, pay back the $2.7 million that you owe them.
Order. Ça suffit. The honourable member for York West.
Mr. Speaker, Conservatives have always hated the Canada Pension Plan. They voted against it in its creation in 1960.
Order. We only sing on Wednesdays, and there's only one song we sing. The honourable member for York West now has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, Conservatives have always hated the Canada Pension Plan. They voted against its creation in 1965 and have voted against improving it every time since. But no Conservative hates it more than the current Prime Minister. He actively campaigned to eliminate it entirely and demanded that Alberta opt out of it, while his closest advisor referred to it as a Ponzi scheme.
That's right.
So as the Prime Minister raises the age of retirement, slashes numerous benefits, how can Canadians possibly trust this Prime Minister to protect the Canada Pension Plan?
And the Honourable Minister of State for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, that allegation is absolutely nonsense. Since the day we were elected, our government has consistently lowered taxes and created new voluntary options for Canadians to save, like the tax-free savings account. But the Liberal leader revealed that he will fund infrastructure projects with, quote, alternative sources of capital, such as pension funds. And he's going to do that while forcing Canadians to take a $1,000 pay cut. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all retirees and those soon-to-be retirees, I would respectfully say to the Liberal leader, keep your hands off our pension funds.
The honourable member for Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' Fairness for Middle-Class plan is more generous and better targeted than the current Conservative plan. It will simplify the complex system of child benefit payments into one bigger tax-free monthly payment for families that most need help and reduce their income by 7%. The minister doesn't want to talk about the Liberal plan because he knows more Canadian families will benefit than under the system he's defending. Why are Conservatives fighting our Liberal plan, knowing they're keeping money away from struggling middle-class families who need the help the most?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
The worst thing you could do for those families is to hit them with a $1,000 payroll tax for every single worker, Mr. Speaker. For a couple where both spouses earn $60,000 a year, The Liberal payroll tax would cost $2,000. And then the small business that employs that couple would also have to match that tax increase. That would kill jobs, according to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. And now the Liberal leader revealed that he would use the money as a source of revenue to fund infrastructure projects, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are telling the Liberal Party, keep your hands off our pensions.
The honourable member for West Melville Marine.
Mr. Speaker, compared to the Conservatives' plan, the Liberal plan would allow for the payment of higher and non-taxable monthly benefits for children. 9 families out of 10 would receive this. It would also provide a significant tax reduction for people in the middle class. Our plan is in vivid contrast to the Conservatives' policies, which only benefit a small percentage of Canadians who are already doing very well. Why will the government not change its priorities to concentrate on the Canadians who are the most in need? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals admit that they want to do away with the universal child care benefit. They want to do away with income splitting, which is also called a tax reduction for families. So they want to take away the tax-free savings account, and even after all of that, and with their tax increases, the Liberals have a big hole of $2 billion that they admit having. So we know that when the Liberals have a hole in their budget, the only thing they do is increase taxes on families, and we are opposed to the Liberal taxes.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, dozens of lawyers, professors, union leaders, and community workers are denouncing the culture of secrecy surrounding the Social Security Tribunal. Of the 10,000 decisions that the tribunal has brought down since 2013, only 148 decisions are public. When Canadians go into proceedings at the SST, they are entitled to all of the jurisprudence so that they can prepare to the best of their abilities. Will the Conservatives publicly release all of the decisions brought down by the tribunal? If yes, when? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the tribunal is in place to enable Canadians who are not satisfied with the decision from the department to launch an appeal. Now, clearly, there are some concerns with respect to the privacy of those people who are launching appeals, but, Mr. Speaker, we ensure that Canadians have a way to appeal when they're not satisfied with decisions. And that enables, and that will enable Canadians to look into these issues surrounding benefits.
Speaker, as the economy stumbles, EI claims are increasing. Unfortunately, after Liberal and Conservative cuts to the program, access to EI benefits is at record lows. Shame. Less than 4 in 10 unemployed Canadians receive any benefits at all, yet still the Conservatives are raiding the EI surpluses to give tax handouts to the wealthy, while the Liberals want to raid the fund for corporate tax cuts. Mr. Speaker, when will the Liberals and the Conservatives learn to get their hands off of the money meant for unemployed Canadians?
Mr. Speaker, quite the contrary. We are reducing employment insurance payroll taxes for both small businesses and the people that work for them. We will see the payroll taxes drop by 21% in just 2 years as a result of decisions that this government has made, and because of the strong employment record of our economy. The Liberals and the NDP propose a 45-day work year. That is, people would work 45 days and then collect EI for the rest of the year. Of course, this would, in addition to causing chaos in the labour market, would also drive up billions of dollars in extra payroll taxes that would kill yet more jobs.
Member for Churchill.
Mr. Speaker, thousands of Indian residential school survivors have clearly called for reconciliation and action. It's time for the government to show some leadership. The Prime Minister will meet the Pope on Thursday when he visits the Vatican. As a first step, will he seize this opportunity to seek an official apology from the Pope for the role that the Catholic Church played in Indian residential schools? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we want to start by thanking all survivors for their courage and for sharing their experience with the Commission and all Canadians. When the Prime Minister offered his historic apology on behalf of all Canadians in 2008, the government acknowledged that the policy of assimilation in the residential schools had caused great damage and that there was no place for that in Canada. I personally wrote to Mr. Speaker, to the provinces and the territories, and to the Canadian Federation of Municipalities, and to the Vatican to inform them of the report of the Truth and Reconciliation report.
Mr. Speaker, sadly, what we didn't hear there was a commitment to reconciliation, and that is what survivors of residential schools are looking for. And while we're there, it's pretty difficult to believe that these Conservatives are committed to reconciliation when the way they treat someone that is doing nothing more than fighting for fairness for Aboriginal children is to respond by humiliating and ostracizing them. The Human Rights Tribunal found that David MacArthur retaliated against Cindy Blackstock, but instead of condemning his actions, this government promoted him. So will the minister recognize in this House that the actions of David MacArthur have no place in a democracy, and will the minister apologize for their appalling attitudes towards Cindy?
The Honourable Minister of Aboriginal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, our government remains committed to the health, the safety, and the well-being of First Nation children throughout the country. Since 2006, our government has increased the Child and Family Services funding on reserve by over 40%, and we are taking action in collaboration with all the partners to ensure that children and families have the support they need to lead healthy and safe lives. As to the specific case raised by the honourable member, we are reviewing the decision to determine next steps.
The member for Ancaster, Dundas, Flamborough, Westdale.
Mr. Speaker, the terrorist death cult ISIS has made it clear that it targets by name Canada and Canadians. Canada and Canada's brave Canadian forces did not sit on the sidelines 71 years ago, and we're not sitting on the sidelines today. Can the Minister of Foreign Affairs update this House on Canada's mission as part of the coalition to degrade and ultimately defeat ISIS?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
ISIS has declared a war on Canada, and that is why Canada is not sitting on the sidelines. I'm pleased to inform this House that the Royal Canadian Air Force has now surpassed 100 airstrikes against ISIS, including strikes near Baiji and Mosul this past weekend. Furthermore, the RCAF has flown over 1,000 sorties. We are providing world-class battlefield surveillance, refueling support, and precision airstrikes against the enemy. As always, we, along with all our allies, thank the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces for the work that they do.
The honourable member for Parkdale High Park.
Mr. Speaker, under the Conservatives, weak job growth hasn't come close to keeping pace with population growth. Blacks has just announced nearly 500 more jobs will be lost, and yet another closure in the retail sector adds more than 1.3 million to the number of Canadians already unemployed. Many of these workers won't qualify under the Conservative cuts to EI, leaving them without support while they look for a new job. So why are the Conservatives blowing money on tax breaks for the wealthy few instead of helping the workers who need it most?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Speaker, TELUS, which owns acquired Blacks in 2009, said, and I quote, "Technological innovations have changed the way Canadians take and share photographs, with fewer of us using retail photo outlets." Mr. Speaker, the NDP solution to that would be to raise taxes on companies like TELUS, which employ, companies like them employ millions of Canadians across the country. They would raise taxes on those who create jobs and on those who work. We do exactly the opposite. We're lowering taxes on job creators, including and especially small businesses, and we're putting more money in the pockets of families so that they can spend and invest in their communities.
member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians pay among the highest prices in the OECD for prescription drugs, leaving 1 in 10 Canadians unable to fill a prescription. Doctors, nurses, pharmacists, health experts, and seniors organizations have all called for the creation of a national drug plan to make prescription drugs more affordable. The provinces have said they're willing to talk, but the federal government won't even come to the table. Why are the Conservatives showing such a shameful lack of leadership in addressing the high cost of drugs for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I've repeatedly said to Canadians and to my provincial counterparts that they are getting ripped off when it comes to the cost of drugs. They negotiate their plans separately instead of together, and I've continuously encouraged them to get together and invite us to the table to look at a national drug purchasing plan, including and foremost to talk about bulk purchasing. We can save Canadians billions of dollars if we do this together, and I am at the table with them.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, 16 cities located along the St. Lawrence River are taking action to ban microbeads. Present in beauty products and toothpaste, these plastic microparticles are contaminating the St. Lawrence. The NDP showed leadership on the issue by obtaining unanimous agreement of the House to add microbeads to the Canadian list of toxic substances. But ever since, there's been radio silence from the government. What are the Conservatives waiting for to take action on the motion and to protect our environment? The Honourable Minister.
Environment Canada has initiated a scientific review to assess the effects of microbeads on the environment. This review builds on the work that we have done to reduce the risk of harmful chemicals. Since 2006, we have taken action on more than 2,700 substances under the Chemicals Management Plan, and we are on track to assess 4,300 substances by 2020. We will also include the issue of microbeads on the agenda this summer's meetings of the Canadian Council of Ministers of Environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Salle-Mar. Montreal is one of the 16 cities located along the St. Lawrence that has joined forces to ban microbeads. But it's the government to take action and to approve products, but that government hasn't followed up on the NDP motion. Given the urgency of this situation, when will the government take action and ban microbeads to protect our waterways? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I've stated, Environment Canada has initiated a scientific review to assess the effects of microbeads on the environment. The scientists are reviewing the issue of microbeads. This review builds on, again, the work that we have done on the risk of harmful chemicals in our environment. We'll also be including the microbeads issue on the agenda this month in Manitoba's meetings of the Canadian Council of Ministers of Environment. Now that's action, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Markham Unionville. Mr. Speaker, throughout their decade of Conservative failure, processing times for families have moved steadily up, with a sharp jump after the budget cuts of 2011. We see family members who can't get into the country for important events, marriages, funerals, or the birth of a loved one. Families left separated by this government's gross incompetence. Right. Will the Conservatives finally take responsibility for this mess that they and only they have created?
That's right. The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, that's absolute nonsense. The number of visitor visas has never been higher. Citizenship applications are being processed within about a year. Iraq and Syrian refugees are being processed within record times, Mr. Speaker. Sponsored spouses are receiving their work permits within months. Under express entry economic immigrants are being processed within weeks or months. None of that happened on the Liberals, Mr. Speaker. All of that was opposed by the Liberals because they are wedded to backlogs, they are wedded to political influence, they are wedded to abuse in the immigration system, Mr. Speaker. This member and this party, the Liberal Party of Canada, have become the anti-immigration party.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg North.
Mr. Speaker, this Minister of Immigration is so wrong. He is absolutely silly and knows nothing in terms of what he is talking about. The delays that this minister has caused is cruel, Mr. Speaker, and it is getting worse as these delays are affecting negatively families not only here in Canada but also abroad, Mr. Speaker. Constituencies and the people we're trying to serve continue to have to wait as this minister's incompetence in terms of increasing delays, Mr. Speaker, is causing problems. Question is, when is this minister going to fix the problem that he created?
Great. The Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
So, Mr. Speaker, if we are to understand correctly, the honourable member thinks it is silly to reform the immigration system. It is silly to have doubled the number of foreign students in Canada. It is silly to have given over 1 million visitor visas to people wanting to visit Canada for legitimate reasons around the world, most of them 10-year multiple entry visas, Mr. Speaker. That never existed under the Liberal Party of Canada. These reforms were opposed every step of the way by the Liberal Party of Canada. The Liberal Party of Canada is against large-scale immigration and good service for immigrants and visitors to this Canada. It's clear now, Mr. Speaker, it's willful.
The Honourable Member for Surrey North.
Mr. Speaker, last night there was yet another shooting in the Surrey near a busy restaurant patio. People are terrified and parents are afraid to let their children play outside. My community needs to know that the federal government is doing everything it can to stop the violence. But, Mr. Speaker, they're not even providing answers to their questions. So my question is very simple. Will the minister finally please tell us the timeline for the proposed 100 RCMP officers?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, our best thought are with those who are impacted by what took place last night in Surrey. And certainly, Mr. Speaker, it is a strong motivation to keep on and push forward a measure we've put forward, Mr. Speaker. I would invite the opposite member, to support those initiatives, Mr. Speaker. Those 100, Mr. Speaker, boots on the ground are being deployed, Mr. Speaker, as an operational matter, Mr. Speaker. But in the meantime, the member can support our tough on crime agenda, Mr. Speaker. He can also support the budget where we are investing in prevention, Mr. Speaker. We are standing up by the people of Surrey, Mr. Speaker, and I invite the member to support our initiative.
Member for Newton North Delta.
Mr. Speaker, this is about the safety of my community, not about partisan political games. Standing up for Surrey means providing answers and a clear timeline. Surrey desperately needs help now to make its streets safer. We've been waiting too long, and with each shooting, families are becoming more and more afraid. Why can't the minister give our community the news it is waiting for? When? Let me be clear. When are the new officers arriving in Surrey?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the answer is very clear. Once the officers are available, they're deployed into the field. Mr. Speaker, we are working hand in hand with the RCMP. But what is scandalous, Mr. Speaker, is to see day in and day out, week in and week out, members rise and not to take action to defend their communities, but just to make noise. Mr. Speaker, on this side, we are taking steps for the communities, like Surrey, and for all communities that are facing safety challenges. I want to congratulate our members who stand to support budgetary measures for prevention and to police officers on the ground, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Saskatoon-Humboldt.
Mr. Speaker, our Conservative government stands for the Canadian middle class, not against them. We want to keep taxes low. Can the Minister for Employment please inform this House on what our government is doing to give Canadians more opportunity to spend on their priorities?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, to start with, we are opposing the Liberal NDP plan for a new $1,000 payroll tax that they would impose on every single middle-class worker and the small business that employs them. To the contrary, we brought in the family tax cut and benefits. Through income splitting, families can save up to $2,000. Through an increased universal child care benefit, parents will receive almost $2,000 for each child under 6 and $720 for kids 6 through 17. The first big payments come out, of course, on July 20th. We encourage all Canadians to make sure they are registered so that they get the money that they deserve.
Honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, massive budget cuts to the Canada Border Services Agency is harming the security of Canadians. This week, the security screening process failed for an entire flight of international passengers who arrived in Vancouver. This government talks about security but undermines actual border security with budget cuts and clawbacks to finance tax breaks for the wealthy. How is it the Conservatives can find $50 million in border services funding for gazebos in Muskoka, but they won't fund services to protect Canadians at our borders?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, it seems like the member has found its question in a box of Cracker Jack. But I want to reassure Mr. Speaker, the member, we have increased frontline officer by 26%, Mr. Speaker. We have increased budget for CBSA, Mr. Speaker, and every step of the way the Liberal opposed it, Mr. Speaker. Regarding what took place last night, Mr. Speaker, as you know, airline companies have the responsibility to ensure international travelers are presented to CBSA for examination. In cases where individuals do not properly report for border processing as a result of errors caused by air carriers, these incidents are reviewed. CBSA is working closely with the airline company, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, Edmonton Sergeant Kevin Nansen survived a bomb blast in Afghanistan. It broke his back, fractured his skull, and left him in a wheelchair. Then, National Defence hired and paid an incompetent contractor to retrofit a home for him, leaving it uninhabitable. To add insult to injury, D&D will be charging Sergeant Nansen $2,000 a month rent on top of his mortgage and clawing back the remainder of his compensation to pay for the uncompleted retrofit. Why is this government making Sergeant Nansen suffer even more?
Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the member for her question and for veterans and Canadians who have been inquiring on this case. Sergeant Nansen served Canada with distinction, Mr. Speaker, and Canada will be there for Sergeant Nansen and his family. The renovations to the home have been approved, Mr. Speaker, and while the problems with the contractor are being resolved, we have directed that Sergeant Nansen and his family can remain on military housing at no cost after his release until the contracting is complete.
The Honourable Member for Northumberland, Quinte West.
That's action.
I had the Honourable Member for Northumberland, Quinte West, but I see the Honourable Member for Don Valley East rising, so I'll give him the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government has consistently lowered taxes and created new voluntary options for Canadians to save, like the tax-free savings account. In contrast, the Liberal leader revealed a risky spending scheme that would force Canadians to take a $1,000 pay cut. It's clear that the Liberal leader has only one plan for our economy, and that is to raise taxes. Can the Minister of Finance please tell this House what our government is doing to help Canadians save?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member from Don Valley East for his important question. We know the Liberal leader's numbers don't add up. In fact, he is more than $3 billion short and counting. And now he has made yet another reckless spending promise and said he would need to find alternative sources of capital, such as pension funds. But this would undermine CPP's independence and put pensioners at risk. Canadians should be concerned. I say, hands off Canada's pensions.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Léonard Saint-Michel.
Evidence is confirmed, and that is why on March 24th, this House voted unanimously for the government to take immediate measures to address the environmental menace of microbeads. Since then, no measures have been taken. That's hardly immediate. The good news is that my private member bill C-684 has the solution. Simply ban the manufacture or importation into Canada of any personal care product containing microbeads. Will the Minister of Environment do the right thing and ban microbeads as my bill prescribes before the end of this parliamentary session?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I stated earlier, Environment Canada has initiated a scientific review to assess the effects of microbeads to the environment, and that review builds on the work that we have done to reduce the risk of harmful chemicals. This issue will also be included at the Canadian Council of Minister of Environment's meeting later this month in Manitoba, and I look forward to working with my colleagues at the federal, provincial, territorial level to address this issue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Concludes question period for today. I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Dr. Olafur Grimsson, President of the Republic of Iceland. I would also like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Gabran Basil, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Emigrants of the Republic of Lebanon. That's it. Yeah. I understand the Honourable Government House Leader is responding to the point of order raised by the Honourable Member for Stannis Gulf Islands.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I apologize for having to scramble, and my comments will be brief as a result. The Honourable Member for Stannis Gulf Islands did not provide me with any notice that she would be raising this point of order, so I had to take some time to try and get some record out of the Blues, which I did only a few moments ago, but I did want to respond to the points she raised, which relate to the decision you will make on the admissibility of her amendments, and in particular the application of Standing Order 76-1 and the practices around it. And what she is proposing, I think, is a dangerous route for you to go down, because she's asking you to make amendments admissible that otherwise would be not, on the basis of when and certain evidence was heard at the committee. The difficulty with this proposal is that it would, of course, require the Speaker to become the judge and arbiter of all the evidence that is heard at committees, when it's heard, and the details of it. And that is not really the Speaker's job. I think that obviously goes into the realm of what happened